Hypixel has recently just released the biggest update that has happened to the game so far, and with updates comes a lot of discussion. This update included the introduction of booster cookies, bits, new cosmetics, and much more, adding more and more fancy features to Hypixel Skyblock. However, the new Booster Cookies edition has gotten a lot of people upset about how it's essentially like IRL trading, although I would argue that this is simply not the case. But before I get into the details, I'd like to quickly say that if you have any further questions or comments about this video, be sure to pop into my Twitch streams. I stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The links are down in the description below. We tend to have a lot of open discussions over there, so I highly recommend checking it out. With that being said, let's get right into the video. Okay, so as you can see here, today's video is going to be talking about the brand new update that Hypixel has released to Skyblock, being this whole new thing with the community upgrades, the new mayor stuff like Mayor Faith, the election rooms, all these kinds of things. But more importantly, what I'm going to talk about in today's video is going to be the booster cookies, and specifically why I feel like this is really good for the game, why this update is one of the best that has happened to Skyblock in the recent times, and what really makes it super good as a whole. So to start things off, let's just cover the very basics on what these new booster cookies are, how you obtain them, and how they work specifically. So if you guys didn't already know, you get one free booster cookie just from playing the game in general. This doesn't stack for each profile, you can only claim it on one profile at a time. And essentially, when you consume these cookies, you get a 4-day buff that will give you the ability to gain bits. You get a 20% skill XP boost, 15 extra magic find, you keep your coins and potion effects on death, you can fly permanently on your island, you get the auction bazaar from anywhere, you can also sell items directly to the trades menu, you don't get AFK kicked on your island, and you can also toggle specific potion effects. So overall, this is a very nice item, and it's really useful with all the perks that you get. Now you will see that the first thing it says is that you get the ability to gain bits. I won't be covering that in today's video because bits are a whole separate thing, although I will cover them a little bit briefly. And essentially the bits allow you to buy some really cool items. If I just go over to Elizabeth here, you can see that if we go to the bits shop, you have all these cool ass items you can buy, and then you can just use them in for whatever their purposes are. So now that we've covered the basics of the cookies and what they do, how do you obtain them? Well, essentially you buy them with real life money. So essentially you pay money to the Hypixel store, you buy some gems, and these gems can be used in exchange for cookies, and then with these cookies you get all these really cool perks you can get as well. However, this is not the only way to obtain cookies. You can also run over to the bazaar over here, and you can actually buy them in the oddities section for about 1.2, 1.3 mil. These prices do fluctuate, and I will cover that later on in the video. But essentially you can buy these cookies with your coins in game, making them so that everyone has access to them regardless of whether you spend money or not. However, the only downside to this, or at least the downside that people think is bad, is that these cookies only make it into the market because people pay for them. So obviously people will buy the cookies and they decide to sell all their cookies to the bazaar, and as a result they get money. So essentially they've exchanged real life money in exchange for Skyblock coins, and that's essentially what IRL trading is, you would think. Although how it seems to be pay to win, this really isn't the case, because these cookies are a very indirect way of IRL trading, if that's the way you want to put it. So I did some maths off camera before I recorded this video, and I managed to calculate that one cookie will cost you about $2.40 USD if you round the numbers up to the nearest 10 cents. Essentially meaning that 1.2 million coins is $2.40 USD. Now, if we put this into proportion to say something like a Midas sword, or just a decent item, we'll go with a Midas sword because it's relatively expensive and not too many people have one, you would end up spending about $100 to buy yourself just a Midas sword alone. A singular weapon costs you about $100. Now, if you ask me, that's pretty expensive. And also keep in mind that this is if the prices stay constant and they don't actually fluctuate between the bazaar, because if you have a look over here, the current prices of the booster cookies are 1.2 million coins. Now earlier today when the update was released, they were about 10 million coins per, so you can already see that these will definitely fluctuate a ton. And if someone decides to just buy a ton of cookies and then wants to sell them all to the bazaar in one go, they will lose money and potential profits because they'll end up inflating the market completely, and that's going to make it so they lose a lot more money. And that's really what keeps this whole system in check, and I feel like it's one thing that a lot of people are overlooking, because people can't simply just IRL trade their way through everything like they used to be able to if they buy from some external third-party services. Another cool thing I also want to mention about this is that I did cover the Midas sword being $100 and this only gets worse and worse depending on where you're from and what currency you pay for. So for example, because I'm Australian, if I were to buy a Midas sword for the current price that it is right now, also granted the fact that the prices do not change of the cookies in the bazaar, then I would end up spending about 180, 190 Australian dollars, and that's a lot of money. Also, not to mention that something like a dragon pet, just a regular epic dragon pet, is $578. Like, that's ridiculous. So, realistically speaking, this is not a very viable way of spending your money, nor is it a viable way to progress your account in the game, and you're much better off just playing it regularly, or actually using the cookies for their intended purpose, and actually gaining benefits out of them the way you're supposed to. So now we've covered that booster cookies aren't necessarily going to be very useful for IRL trading, and people aren't going to be able to just buy a ton of coins like you would expect them to. I'm going to cover just the booster cookies perks in general and how that can affect people who don't choose to spend money on the game and what it's going to do as a whole. So like I said before, you can buy these over the bazaar, which means that anyone who plays the game regularly doesn't have to spend money, and they're going to be able to get these booster cookies just from paying for it with their Skyblock coins. They're going to get all these really cool perks, and they're going to just be able to use them just as they would be able to if they spent money on the game. Now, if someone just doesn't decide to buy them for whatever reason, which I feel like a lot of people will anyways, because they're pretty decent investment if you're willing to spend the 1.2 mil, at least that's the price for them right now. But for whatever reason, if you decide not to buy them, the difference between a player who has these boosts and a player who hasn't got them isn't super significant. So if you take a look at the first three, those are the big ones I would say. The ability to gain bits, the skill XP boost, and also the magic find. That's going to help you get way more drops and also level up your skills much more. However, the very last ones, the keeping coins on death, the flying on islands, the access to the AH and Bazaar anywhere, those are all just quality of life changes, and they really don't do too much to your gameplay at all, while the first three essentially only just help you progress a little bit faster, meaning that this isn't a pay to win system, it's just a pay to progress faster system, which makes it more balanced. It makes it much better than just like selling coins on the Hypixel store option. I feel like this overall was a very, very good way to monetize Skyblock as a whole, which I'm going to talk about right now. So we've covered why booster cookies aren't necessarily the best way to IRL trade your wealth into Skyblock, and how it's not really going to influence the market too much, but rather make the gameplay much better for anyone who decides to play. Now I want to talk about all the really great features this update has to offer, and why I feel like it's one of the best updates to ever happen inside of Hypixel Skyblock, and that's going to be a couple of things. So the first one being that it helps to minimize IRL trading as a whole, since people can technically just buy a ton of coins inside of the game by just spending real money on booster cookies. Even though I cover that's really inefficient, people can still do it, and it's not super harmful for the game. That is going to help minimize IRL trading drastically, and it's also going to ensure that the profits go straight to Hypixel, and this is really good for the game and really good for the longevity of the game, because Hypixel is getting all of this money. That means that they're going to be able to employ more people on their staff teams, more people on their dev teams, and they're going to be able to pump out updates faster and also pump out higher quality updates, and overall it's going to be very good for just the majority of the player base. And honestly, even if I weren't going to be buying booster cookies, as a player who doesn't spend money or doesn't plan on doing so, I feel like this is still something that you want people to be buying, because if they're going to be able to keep your game alive and healthy, in the long run, it's going to be better for you, as you're still going to be able to enjoy it and still enjoy the same updates as other people, just at a little bit less of a disadvantage, if that's what you really want to call it. So essentially, I feel like this update is just a really good one overall. Having these booster cookies is just such a great addition to the game, and it's also really nice that Hypixel gave the first one for free to every player on the server, because without it, then people wouldn't get a taste for what it's like, then people wouldn't actually consider buying them either, and if it weren't for that reason, then they wouldn't have been able to monetize the game in this way. And I feel like overall, it's just going to make the game much better as a whole, regardless of being able to IRL trade certain coins and whatever, even if it were a viable option. So overall, this update is really good for Hypixel Skyblock, and I feel like a lot of people are just really over dramatic about the entire thing with the whole IRL trading sort of thing, and just the update as a whole. The new booster cookies add a lot of really great features and also help monetize the game to hopefully pump out more updates and also give us better quality updates. It also helps to minimize the more illegitimate IRL trading schemes that were happening outside of the game as a whole. Not only does it also help things outside of the game, but inside of the game, people who do decide to buy these cookies get some really really nice perks that I have already covered in the video, and also are accessible for absolutely everybody, whether you spend money or whether you don't. And overall, the whole pay to win type thing that people are talking about isn't a big deal. It's far too unreliable to be buying tons of cookies and then selling them back at the bazaar, because like I said before, you would need immense amounts of cookies in order to be able to get all this stuff, because like I said, a Midas is about $100 USD. That only gets worse depending on the currencies you pay for, and even things like a Dragon Pet being 500 USD is absolutely ridiculous, and I feel like no one's really going to do that reliably. And even if there's occasionally the 1 or 2 people who do decide to do things like that, it won't inflate the economy much at all, and it shouldn't affect the average player on a day-to-day basis. Once again, reinforcing the fact that I feel like this update is very, very good, and one that people should be more excited for rather than being upset about. But with all that being said, that's going to wrap up today's video for you all. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this, because it was pretty interesting to make, and I feel like it covers a lot of important topics that people were sort of complaining about. And also, if you did find this informative or you found it enjoyable in some way, please do leave a like or consider subscribing to the channel, because it does help me out greatly. And I also make these Hypixel Skyblock videos every Wednesdays and Fridays. And also, if you do have any further questions or comments about this video, be sure to pop into my Twitch streams. I stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The links are down in the description below. We can have a really good chat about this conversation if you do think that I did miss some points, or if you just want to talk about it as a whole, feel free to check it out as well. But with all that being said, everybody, hopefully you all did enjoy this video, and as always, take care and peace. This thing is so dead, dude. I only got 3rd place. No way! No way! No way! No, 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 no! There's no way! There's no way! You're joking! You're joking, bro! You're joking! I'm just gonna Golden Pet! Yo, what? No way!